I recently posted a lesson teaching various chord melody segments by one of my all-time favorite guitarists who is no longer with us, unfortunately. And of course, I'm referring to Ed Bickert. And as underrated as I feel he was, I was very happy to learn from the comments that he does have a small cult-like following that is just as eager as myself to learn everything possible from his playing. So for today's lesson, I have transcribed part of a solo from his very first album as a leader. And it's titled simply Ed Bickert, and it's on the Canadian Sackville label. And this, by the way, is a live trio performance, and we are going to examine the very last chorus from his solo on Manha de Carnaval. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this standard. It's a classic bossa nova, also known as Black Orpheus. So next, let me play it for you, and then I'll break it down and analyze what he's doing. If you're not familiar with Ed Bickert's playing, I hope you were able to hear some of his signature colorful three-part voicings. Yep, many of them are simply upper extension triads like we are soon going to learn. But before I proceed to analyze this, I want to encourage you to download this lesson study package so you can easier follow along in practice. It includes a PDF with full notation and tab, an MP3 of me playing the solo, a band-in-a-box file with the solo also, and a MIDI file that you can open up in Guitar Pro or the free app MuseScore. And all of this is available for a nominal contribution from jazzguitar.richieZellen.com/premium, and you will find it in the transcription section along with many other goodies. And without further ado, let's break down the first 8 measures. And this chorus begins right after the bass solo, and Bickert doesn't start playing until towards the end of the second measure. And the beauty of it is that right off the bat, he comes in with a simple motif that gradually develops by adding a contrapuntal guide tone line right below it. And I want you to notice how the use of this device captures the listener's attention as Bickert starts to tell his story. So this is the beginning of the solo. And he starts playing around with this motif. It's a descending line, and of course, the notes change their relationship to the moving chords. So for example, he starts out over a G minor, and this first note in relation to that G minor is the 11th, and he's going back and forth between that and the flat 3. But as soon as he transitions to the A half diminished, that same note of course becomes the flatted 3, and he introduces underneath it the flatted 7. That goes underneath to the third of the 5 chord, which is a D7 flat 9. And that same note above, which was previously the 11th, now becomes the flatted 7. And then he goes back to G minor 7, and the lower note now becomes the flatted 7. And then that note becomes the 6th. So we have this voicing here happening. And then this lower note becomes the flat 3 of a C minor voicing. So the changes So this is a very interesting concept that you can apply to many minor tunes or minor 2-5-1 cadences. Summertime comes to mind if we swing it. Softly as in a morning sunrise. Lullaby of Birdland, and there's so many more. So with this understanding, let's hear these measures again at tempo with the backing track. Next, let's analyze measures 9 through 16. And here we have those signature Ed Bickert 3-part voicings. Okay, he starts out on this C minor 7 going to an F7, and he plays. Okay, this first voicing here is simply an E flat major triad, which is played over the C minor. It's got the flat 3 here, the 5th, and the flatted 7. But the interesting thing is when he goes to that F7, and this is a signature Ed Bickert voicing, he's got the 13 here, the flat 7, and the 3rd of an F7. Notice he's got this minor 2nd. And the minor 2nd is the most dissonant interval of all intervals. And we're going to see that Bickert exploits this tension in his voicings. And as soon as we go to this next chord, he uses the principle of using seconds inside his voicings almost consistently. So he goes to this B flat major 7. And he's got that C here, which is the 9th, and a whole step above, the 3rd. He's got the 5th below it, and the major 7th above. So here we don't quite have a minor 2nd, but we have a major 2nd, which is also probably the 2nd most dissonant or tension-producing interval out there. And from here, he goes to an E flat major 7. And guess what? He includes that major 2nd in the middle of the voicing again. And he completes that measure by playing in E flat major 6 and finally E flat major 7. But the interesting thing is you can also include that major 2nd inside here on the major 6 voicing just by turning the root into the 9th And you have, and you can do it again for the final major seventh. Here I'm including the 13th in the bottom, the 9th, the 3rd, and the major 7th. And if you are one of those people that have a hard time making sense of this voicing, let me play it with the open A root. See there, it makes more sense when you hear it against the root or if you have a bass player with you. Here it is in the key of E with an open E string. Beautiful, isn't it? Okay, right after that, he proceeds to an A minor 7 flat 5. And he follows that, going from that 2-5 in A minor to D, the 5 chord, and he plays this line. Yep, all it is the D. He goes up half step here, plays an A13th, which is the dominant of the D7 altered, and ends this segment with my favorite part in the G minor chord. This is a beautiful passage where he has a moving line in the lowest voice. So he's going from the G minor 7, adding that half step up from the 7th and making it a major 7th. So we now have a G minor major 7, goes back to the minor 7th, goes to the 6th, so now we have a G minor 6, and then goes an extra half step down, and he's implying a C minor 7 voicing, a C minor 9 to be exact, which is the subdominant minor of G. And that progresses smoothly to the 5 chord, which is D. So let's hear these measures at tempo with the backing track. We are now going to analyze measures 17 through 24, and this just gets better and better. Here we are starting the B section, and Bickert is getting busier to eventually bring the solo to its climax. I want you to notice, though, in this first section here, this Afro-Cuban montuno-like motif that he develops. So without the chord melody, this line would sound something like this. Here it is with the little pickup he does before it. Something like that. But here it is with the chords. And that's over the G minor 6. Then he goes to an A7, 13 flat 9. So then he goes back, that same G minor 6, but then he goes. So here he's playing over an E flat dominant 9 chord, which is simply the the tritone substitute of A, which resolves to the upcoming D, D7 sharp 9. And from there, he plays this voicing with the flatted 13, sharp 5 in D, and transitions to this one, which is actually a D minor 7 flat 5 with the 9. Love it. From here he goes to the 5 chord, which is going to resolve to C minor. But the interesting thing is this altered dominant voicing that he uses. I've never heard any other guitarist use this, but I've heard Bickert use it in several of his solos. The unique thing about it is that it's got no third in it. It's got the root G, it's got the sharp 11 here, it's got the flatted 7 and the flatted 9. And I think that the reason he's playing this voicing, which works so well after the previous chord, is because he wants to create some contrary motion between this and this. If you observe with this D minor half diminished, the top note is going to go up a half step and the bottom note is going to go down a half step. Watch this. Beautiful. And then he obviously resolves to the C minor, and he plays some of his signature voicings here, 3-part voicing. And these are diatonic Dorian-based triads in second inversion. So with this understanding, let's hear these measures at tempo with the backing track. And we're ready for the final 8, measures 25 through 32. And for this final segment, I want you to notice how busy Bickert gets in order to end the solo on a climax. And the first thing he does to really grab your attention is he leaps to a very high register and starts to gradually descend from there using some beautiful chord melody. This is absolutely genius. So here he starts over an A minor 7 flat 5, but he's superimposing some C minor voicings, and that's because this voicing, this A minor voicing, has this C minor triad as a part of it. So it starts with this C minor 9, and then he plays 2 voicings in fourths. They're both voicings with 11ths in them. This one here has the 9th in it, the 5th, the flatted 7, and the 11th on top. Then he goes down here, a whole step down, he has the C in the root, the 11th, the flatted 7, and the flat 3 on top. Then he goes into this E flat dominant 7th, followed by a A13. So he's going pretty much through the cycle of fifths. So this is just a tritone substitute of this A. Then he's going to the actual A, and then going to the D, all dominants. And he plays one additional voicing here for the D7 before resolving to G minor. And notice that this is the same shape that we analyzed earlier. We had analyzed it here as an F13, 13 in the bottom, flatted 7, and 3 on top. Here the same voicing becomes sharp 9 in the bottom, half step up to a 3, and flat 7 on top. So again, taking advantage of those minor seconds wherever available. And after that, he goes to G minor. It's a G minor 11, another G minor. Then he goes to an F minor 9. He plays a 2, going to the 5, which is B flat, and resolves to E flat. Using this voicing here, and in E flat, this is the 13th, the major 7th, and the 3rd. Hear it here with the root. Follows that with another voicing over the same chord. And that voicing is simply an inversion of this one. He's bringing the 3rd down to the 4th string, and now he has the 3rd, the 13th, and the major 7. Notice always those intervals of a second in there to add that tension. So this section sounds like this all together, played real slow. So here, let's go into an A minor 11. Plays kind of like a clave-like figure and brings it up to this kind of an implied a D7 altered. So this would be the sharp 11 in D, the flat is 7, and of course the root. And then goes to a G hybrid. So root, 2nd, and 5th, but he immediately turns that 2nd into a flat 3. And proceeds to play an A flat major 7 and brings the solo to an end. So let's hear these measures at tempo with this understanding. Now, if that solo isn't a masterclass in motif development and modern jazz voicings, I don't know what is. I truly hope you can learn as much as I did from it. And if you enjoyed this lesson and want me to analyze some more Ed Bickert transcriptions, please, by all means, let me know. I can do this all day, you know. As usual, I appreciate your likes and welcome your comments. And if this is your first time on this channel and you enjoyed this lesson, please be sure to subscribe. I look forward to bringing you another info-filled lesson very, very soon. But until then, you know the drill. Practice, practice, practice. And if you're trying to get to Carnegie Hall, well, call an Uber. May peace be with you.